Hi, this is TCromer. I am presenting my final portfolio for ARV 280 at Trident Technical College. Just a quick background, I have a bachelor's degree in advertising from the University of Alabama. I graduated in 2002, and the first part of my career I spent in marketing and graphic design. I then stayed home and raised my children and did freelance work. And now I am entering my second career and I'm going to be a teacher. I am currently getting my graduate degree from the University of the Cumberlands in Kentucky. It is a Master of Arts in Teaching, and it will be a concentration of K through 12 art education. So I'm hoping to teach visual arts and or media arts in a K through 12 setting. So this portfolio shows artwork that I've completed while at Trident, but also lesson plans that I have compiled to hopefully teach in my own classroom one day. To start with the artwork, this is an acrylic painting. It was done on a 12 by 16 canvas board. It is just a small, realistic study of an object, and I chose a teapot that I had here at my home. And I did it in sepia tones and then a blue glaze over that. So everything is done in like creams and sepia tones, and then the blue you see there was a gloss medium mixed in with my blue that I then glazed over the top. This piece is a mixed media piece. I wanted to do that since my background is mainly in graphic design and all that I've been focusing at Trident on more painting and drawing and visual arts. I wanted to combine those things. So this is an illustration of Frida Kahlo. I did it in Adobe Illustrator using just 2D shapes. I didn't use any gradient mesh or any 3D. I wanted it to be kind of a flat 2D representation of her. There is like a texture in her shirt, and all of that is digital. The background, the green background, is actually a nod to one of her famous magazine covers, which features her on the cover of Vogue on this beautiful green background. So that's where the green came from. So I had this printed on a 16 by 20 canvas paper, which turned out really great. And then over the top of that, painted with acrylic paint the flowers that she's so famously known for wearing in her hair. So I just wanted to combine those things. The illustration is a closed format, and then I wanted the painting to kind of go outside of that closed format, kind of into an open format to just kind of show that juxtaposition. Next, there is a vector illustration of an apple. This is a gradient mesh. I mainly wanted to focus on showing the highlights and the reflection of the apple and really getting the curves right, and that top portion where you can see the green around the base of the stem, making that as realistic as possible, and really trying to go for just really showing the reflections off the apple skin. This is a photograph. I took this in photography class. This is actually one of my classmates. Her name's Cassidy. She's lovely. I chose this photo to include because I just really loved like the color story in this one. I love how her blue hair just really complements those orange and yellow flowers. It just makes such a striking difference between those colors, and it just showed up so beautifully. I did edit it in Lightroom, did some skin smoothing and some brightening of her eyes and different adjustments, so highlights and shadows to give it balance. This is a kind of a mini series that accidentally kind of formed itself. The first photo in the top left corner I took in photography class. One evening, just in the golden hour, saw this beautiful bloom and ran and grabbed my camera, and it just the lighting and this camera settings magically made this beautiful glowing type feel to the middle of this flower that I really loved, and it made me happy. So in another class, when we had to do a nature painting or a landscape painting, I decided to use that same flower and try to get those glowing and the highlights in the paint. And then I also illustrated it using Adobe Illustrator in the bottom left. So the way this is laid out is meant to show the differences in different types of mediums. So through photography, it took a couple of hours, taking the photo, going through the different ones I'd taken, editing it in Lightroom. The painting took around 8 hours or so, painting the background, blending all of the colors, painting the bloom. And then the illustration took many, many days, as illustrations often do. And it, to the bottom right, you'll see the gradient mesh. So it was probably about 20 different layers, all combined to kind of also give that glowing effect, which is really important to me to capture from that flower. So that is this little bloom series. On to lesson plans. So these are lessons that I hope to bring into a classroom one day. We're going to start with a choice-based pointillism lesson. This would be for possibly grades 9 and 10, like an Art 1 type class. On all of these plans, you'll notice I have on the left-hand side, there are the South Carolina Visual Art Standards listed, and this lesson and these lessons to come, all of the South Carolina standards that they meet are listed there on that left-hand side. And then we have questions we're asking through this process, ways the kids are going to engage in this. So essential questions for this specific lesson, like what is pointillism? What's the history of that? Who are some famous pointillist artists? How does the eye optically mix colored dots placed in a close proximity to kind of trick your mind into seeing something different? And what that could look like in different mediums. So this is a choice-based lesson, meaning the students would get to choose their medium, choose how they want to express the way that they are interpreting this. So in the lesson, there are different videos that we would watch, different apps we would use. There is an app called Google Art Projector, which will project a piece of artwork through your smartphone, and you can see it as in real life in your room, like what it would look like, the real size of it. It's so cool, and I think kids would love that. So we'll be using that to look at some different artwork through the Art Projector app. Learning different vocabulary about pointillism, and the materials for this one I think that would work obviously would be construction paper, different colored papers, hole punchers in different sizes and shapes, scissors, magazines, cutting those out in different sizes and shapes, tissue paper, but also then allowing the kids to maybe use colored pencils or paint and see if they can reproduce pointillism in that way. So the students would then check in with me once their reference photo is chosen, and once their medium is chosen. And then at the end of that, they would write an artist statement explaining why they did it and what their inspiration was, and then they would present that artist statement to the class along with their artwork. And this is an example of what that might look like. This is the one that I created that is using punched out dots in the shape of a circle. And it's the recreation of the famous painting Blue Fox. The next lesson is for maybe an Art 2, like 10th and 11th grade. This one's called The Way I See the World. So we have our learning targets over here, and we're asking ourselves the questions, how can you reimagine an object in nature? Is there a difference in what your eyes see and what your mind sees? And then with this lesson, I'd actually like to use it as an infusion between art and language arts, and we would actually be writing poetry as well. Can you explain what you see through your mind's eye using a combination of your artwork and poetry? So I'd introduce this lesson by using the poem Seeing the World Differently, and then we would go outside and sketch and look for an object in nature. The first thing we would do is create its actual form and shape as realistically as possible through their chosen medium. This is also choice-based because they can paint, they can do sculpture, they can do drawing, we can use charcoal, they could use acrylic, whatever way they think is going to best express themselves, and then maybe even photography. So the example here would be the pine cone that I used, and I drew the pine cone as realistically as possible, which would be the first part of this lesson, and then reimagined it as the feathers on the chest of an owl, which would be the second part of this lesson. The third lesson here is typography as art. This would be a media arts lesson, possibly for middle school, maybe 8th grade. standards met are on the left. Our essential questions being, what is typography? What's the difference in a font and a typeface? Can typography be used in a work of media arts to convey more than just content? Can we convey more than just words and what the words mean by our choice of typography? And who are some famous artists that do that? So we have, again, some videos to go through with the kids and let them introduce them to some famous artists who do this style and get some inspiration for that. This one, they would break into small groups and discuss. So once they pick a reference photo of a person of their choosing, they would then pick 2 different font styles and then present that to a small group of their peers to say, which one do you think best conveys this person? Which one do you think is saying what I wanted to say? And then kind of have a little small group discussion before they complete their artwork. This would be done in Adobe Illustrator. The lesson on how to create text and convert that to outlines would be done through a teacher-led lesson. And then they would put this together in a digital gallery, and we would have just a digital gallery walkthrough where they would present their work to their classmates. This is the example that I created, Vincent van Gogh. I used a script font, so because it mimicked his style of painting, his beautiful swirls and things he created in his artwork. Hopefully is also shown here through this type work. Last one, this is a lesson plan for middle school, possibly an advanced art group, maybe 6th and 7th grade advanced art. This is an art history lesson. So this lesson is learning about 4 major art movements, being Impressionism, Post-Impressionism, Cubism, and Surrealism. Learning about which artists are known for that, and then figuring out how they can be inspired by that work to create their own cohesive painting that would combine those artistic styles from multiple art history areas. So this lesson would take quite some time. We would first go over the art history lessons there. Then we would go over some of the artists. The kids would learn about those different art movements. Then they would break into groups to prepare a Google slide presentation, which would show what they had learned about those artists and that art history. Then they would move toward independent work where they would choose one painting from each movement as inspiration. They would practice those techniques and then ultimately end up with one piece of art that has 4 different art history inspirations included. But the trick is to make that one piece of artwork harmonious and cohesive and appealing to the eye. So the 2 examples given here, the one on the bottom left is actually Megan Whitehurst. She made that beautiful butterfly. And then my example here is one piece that has a post-impressionist in the top left, cubism in the top right, impressionism in the bottom right, and surrealism in the bottom left. And that one is Dolly, in case it's not clear. So that is the 4th lesson for students. So that's it. I hope that I was able to explain that well, and that you can kind of see what I'm going toward with my lesson plans and through my artwork. And I have a website, TCromer.com, that has a lot of this information if you'd like to check it out. Or you can email me, or you can check out my Instagram to see more examples of different types of work. And I really appreciate your time, and I will see you soon.